So today we are starting out with our Acumatica versus GP webinar Lunch and Learn series. And I think that the key thing here for this session is going to be how the two systems compare side by side from a navigation standpoint and operational flow. And we'll also be talking about a little bit about reporting, although we'll be diving into more of the reporting and some of the other things. So today is really focused on, how do you work day to day in Great Plains versus how would you work with that same data in Acumatica. What we'd like to do here is take you through a few slides to introduce you to Acumatica and how we feel Acumatica is a different platform than the current GP platform. So the agenda for today is, obviously we're doing the welcome. We are going to do the overview, which I'm going to do. Stacey's going to do the demo, and then we have the wrap up and questions. So we are very much in what we call a digital transformation phase in the world right now, and many people not sure if they really realize what is happening, but your business application is a real core piece of that. But if you're stuck on an older platform, you're really not taking advantage of it. Analog business systems were more of the systems that we saw, back in the 80s. I would probably put Great Plains in the modern technology platform, which was what we call client server type application. But right now, digital business means we're kind of getting away from the paper and how we might interact with that paper. In some of the additional seminars that we're going to be doing, you're going to see where we're not going to just take a picture of a dinner receipt. When that picture is taken, we're going to actually look at the what's on that piece of paper and digitally transfer that into an expense receipt, so that the person getting reimbursement isn't keying in 100% of the information. So that's really kind of in a real simplistic fashion what I mean by digital business. And Acumatica is a platform that takes advantage of that, where most of, if not the majority of the systems out there don't. Yes, you can add on some add-ons, that can kind of do that, but to be able to do that inside the core application, Acumatica is by far a platform that is different than even some of the other cloud-based ERP systems out there, like NetSuite. Yeah, they can add on an app to do that, but they can't do it in the core platform. Acumatica platform is very different. So this is just a statement that how do you transform your business into the digital economy? Well, you do it by having a core system that can take advantage of that. When we look at Acumatica, again, we're going to be focusing at least on this Lunch and Learn series with the financial management side. But Acumatica has project accounting, inventory, customer management, which is CRM and payroll. So they have all the same applications that Great Plains has. They also have what they call additions, where they take certain modules and they bring them together to work together. So if you've got some e-commerce capabilities, again, you're not just putting an e-commerce platform and tying it to your ERP system. Again, it's part of the ERP system. They have a construction edition, distribution edition, manufacturing, and even a field service. So you take those modules and you put them into additions. Now this screen is probably the most important screen that we'll be talking about when it comes to Acumatica, and that is in the very middle of this kind of diagram. You're going to see XRP platform. Most software products out there are a combination of a database and some kind of a language, and then they basically that business logic gets built into that, and for all intents and purposes, you come up with a software package. Acumatica's platform is different because it can do true document management in the platform. It has a mobile framework in the platform. It has the ability to take advantage of being able to, send out emails, based on triggers in the platform, and all, multi-tenanted, which obviously allows it to run in the cloud, so that you can, kind of have a distinct differences between the database, the security. So all of that is built into the platform. So when we take a picture of a dinner receipt, the OCR capability is in the platform. So that's what makes Acumatica's platform different. Then on top of that, you have your normal business, logic, your inventory, your financial, your order management. And then obviously we already talked about taking those and moving them into the additions. Underneath it, you have your database. Acumatica will work with Microsoft SQL Server, but it'll also work with MySQL. And then when you take that database and the business logic, you have to put it somewhere. Well, Acumatica's SaaS, software as a service, runs in the Amazon Web Services cloud. But you can also put it in an Azure cloud if that's where you want to go with it. Then the tool sets that wrap all these things together are all the latest Microsoft tool sets. Visual Studio, .NET, C#, ASP.NET, and HTML5. Now, Acumatica is a true born in the cloud browser-based system. So it's not a system that was in effect ported over from old technology like Microsoft 365, business edition over there, or what they call a BC. That 365 product that Microsoft is selling, Business Central, is Navision. And Navision is actually 28 years old. Microsoft GP is about 25 years old. So they took the business logic out of Navision and they put a browser on top of it. Acumatica took an entirely different approach. They wrote the product from scratch based on a new platform that was available in the 2010 timeframe, which makes it, in a timeframe where smartphones were on the market. Many of the other cloud-based systems like NetSuite or Intact, which I looked at closely for our business and decided that they weren't the solution for Cal to sell, were also written in the 1999 and 2001 timeframe when we were using Blackberries and flip phones. So the technology, very different. Acumatica, in just the last 10 years since it came out around 2010, already has almost 10,000 customers running on it. That is an amazing number when you think of the fact that right now they are the fastest growing cloud ERP system in the market right now. We talked a little bit about AWS, and that's where Acumatica houses their software as a service version. But it is one of the most integrated products when it comes to the Microsoft Office environment, 365, Power BI. Matter of fact, I always use the term that when Microsoft came out with Power BI, which is about 7 or 8 years ago, and they had it on one of their conferences, with the big announcement, the company that was on the stage the day they made that announcement was Acumatica, not any of the other software vendors out there, but Acumatica. That again speaks to the flexibility of the platform and the ability for it to work with new and more modern offerings that are just coming on the market. When we talk about open architecture and we talk about the cloud, we know now that we're dealing almost on a day-to-day basis with all kinds of cloud systems. For example, if you're signing insurance policies or you're buying a home, you use something maybe like a DocuSign or an Adobe Sign, where you might be signing these things electronically. Well, these cloud products that you're starting to see everywhere, are going to work better with a true cloud product than they are with a product that was written 25 years ago. And when you look at this screen, many of these same add-ons, work with GP, but they they don't talk to GP in the same way that they can talk to another cloud product. So all I'm trying to, I guess, kind of outline here on this screen is that when you're talking cloud to cloud, it's a much more efficient and cost-effective communication method than when you're talking cloud to client server or on premise. So this screen just kind of pulls that together. Security. I mean, we've all heard all of the stories and the problems with the pipelines and things of that nature. Many of you, if not the majority of our clients, are running client server. They're running on their own servers in-house. Some of them have moved to the cloud, but the cloud they might move to might be a local data center, things like that. We have actually had 3 clients in the last 12 months that have been held up for ransomware, where their servers have been hacked. So security is very, very important these days. Now, Amazon Web Services, and I'm not sure if many people know this, is probably I think is one of the #1 data security partners with the government. So when you're running in the Amazon Web Services cloud, you're not having to rely on your local IT provider or your internal IT to keep you secure, keep you from somebody coming in and being able to access your data or ransom your data. So you have the advantage of digital security by one of the most prominent technology companies in the world, and with their tools are protecting your data. So there's some advantages there that you may not be thinking about. Acumatica can run, both in SaaS environment, but it can also be run in a public cloud or a private cloud. And we always hear the word cloud and we think it's all the same, but it's actually very different. A public cloud is where you're running with a lot of other companies, but you're in a shared environment. Where a private cloud is you take your information and you're running on a server, but it's only your server, but it's in the cloud. So there are differences, between private and public. A lot of times they don't talk about that, but Acumatica can run in either one. Modern, growth-friendly licensing. Acumatica, if you've been on GP, you know that every time you add a new license, you pay for that license. Well, most other cloud providers, it's the same thing. You add a user, you pay for that user. With Acumatica, it's more of a resource-friendly environment from a standpoint of users, because you buy a level of resource, but the number of users you can put on that server to access that information for your company can vary. And sometimes you might only have somebody who might come in once a week for 10 minutes, but you're going to pay for that with the per user model. With Acumatica, as long as you're not overloading that resource level that you're on, you can bring as many people into the operation as need be. And typically that, think of it, when I say resource, you think of a server with a certain amount of memory and a certain number of cores. And as long as you're on a small, let's say, and your business doesn't double, let's say, if it doubles, well, then you might have to go a little higher resource level where you get a little more memory and a little more cores. But again, everybody's involved in the business. So Acumatica is growth friendly in that respect, because they don't penalize you every time you add that little user. They do have a small business edition, which is user-based, which I'll talk a little bit later on. So I do want to qualify when I say something that I'm accurate in what I'm depicting. Data ownership. This is another thing. When we talk about taking your data to the cloud, we kind of think in certain terms of, hey, we've lost control of it. We don't know where it's running. We know it's there, in the cloud somewhere. We don't know what server's on. We don't even know where that server is. But the core thing is it's still your data. It's your customers, your vendors. It's your information. And you should be able to get that information at any time if you want access to it. And let's say like you decide to change systems, maybe you don't, you want to move in a different direction. How do you get that data back from the vendor that has it in the cloud? In Acumatica, that mystery is not something to be concerned with, because what you end up doing is at any time, even if you're running in a cloud, you can take a snapshot. So you go up, you go into your version, you go into your, not everybody would have this capability, by the way, because I mean, again, it's, this is a, something that probably only the system administrator have. You can take a snapshot. You take that snapshot and you can then transfer that, kind of think of it as like a suitcase with your data in it. And it's not just your data, it's your setups and how Acumatica has been configured is all in this suitcase full of information. So then you could take, and you can always get access to a 2-user version of Acumatica, and you can load that under MySQL or SQL onto even a laptop or even a server somewhere. And you get the same version that you're running in the cloud, and Acumatica makes all those versions available to you in that free 2-user. You put it wherever you want, and you restore the snapshot. When you do that, you literally will have a full working version of not only your database, but your entire system able to be run in a local environment, so that you can access your data in a SQL format, as opposed to many other systems. If you decide to leave, you got to start taking your data out, dumping them into Excel tables. They're not related to each other. It's just a mess. You know what I mean? So data ownership is something that Acumatica provides. In my mind, no other cloud vendor does it the way that they allow you to, be able to control your data. Acumatica has a university, free training. I mean, Microsoft has had that for, I've been a Microsoft partner now for 25 years. And literally, what they have in the cloud for training is, in my mind, inadequate. Again, I know I'm throwing my own system under the bus, but I mean, they've never kept up with it. They've never, but Acumatica, I mean, they have the same cloud training that we get certified on is available to you to train not only yourself, but your team, and it's free. And they call it Acumatica University, Open University. And you can go out and you can get badges, and you can actually certify yourself if that's what you want to do. But, and the training is intense. Compared to most of the online training I've seen for other ERP systems over my 40 years of being in the business. This is probably one of the first screens we're going to show you in the live demo, and that is, we talked about that time frame, 2010, smartphones. Everybody started, accessing websites because they could on a browser on their phone, and all of a sudden all the websites didn't look right, and they were all kind of weird because you're trying to look at a website, on a phone or a tablet, you know what I mean? You weren't on a full-size screen, and that's that aspect, forced almost all companies to go out and redo their databases. Initially, they had a mobile platform, and and then what they called a desktop platform. You could request either one, because again, there was different real estate, and so that was called responsive design. So what happened there is that now you go to most websites, and they will automatically adapt to whatever phone, tablet size you have. That's because the technology to develop those websites had to be completely rewritten. Well, Acumatica was written in a period of time where responsive design was a requirement. So you'll see a demonstration from Stacey where she's going to show you how the entire Acumatica application can literally change itself depending upon what it's running on, a true born in the cloud product. And you'll get to see that live on both a vendor screen as well as some of these dashboards that are depicted here. This screen just kind of tells it all. I mean, we just saw in the Acumatica Summit where we were able to approve an invoice on a watch, because we can, you know what I mean? And, obviously, natural language interface to things like Alexa and Siri is built into that platform. So again, as we look forward and we look at like where do we want to take our business in the upcoming years, don't we want to be on a platform that's ready to be able to do this? and Acumatica, as far as I know, is the only one that allows for that. So let's just recap real quick what Acumatica is. Latest technology, written at least 10 to 15 years earlier than some of the other cloud solutions. Can be run on any device, utilizes responsive design. The user-based model for pricing is based on unlimited users per that resource. Choice, being able to run it in SaaS, private cloud, or you can buy it like you can GP. There's different add-ons like e-commerce, but we aren't going to dive into that right now. Seamless integration to Microsoft Exchange and Outlook. Flexible dashboards. Again, we get back to your data and security. Those are all things that Acumatica provides that make it different in many respects to Great Plains, the platform that we all know and love. Cal ran GP for 23 years, before we switched to Acumatica ourselves. But let's just talk a little bit about some of the differences head to head, okay? Cloud, born in the cloud versus client server design. GP is a client server application. It'll always be a client server application. True web browser versus terminal server and remote desktop access. Acumatica has an API, application programmer interface. GP has none. GP has a thing called eConnect. eConnect is not an API. So when you talk to other systems or you need interfaces done, an API is always going to make it easier and less costly. The financial report writer in GP was FRX, now is Management Reporter, which Microsoft stopped developing on in 2012. So they haven't had any major improvements in Management Reporter in 8 years. Okay, and it never came up to the same feature functionality that FRX had because that's what Microsoft did. I can tell you that built into Acumatica is a financial report writer that looks and feels just like FRX and MR. Rows, columns, and trees. Instead of trees, they're unit sets. But I can tell you it's built into the platform. You don't jump out into an entirely different product like FRX or an entirely different application like MR. It is built in. And your rows and your columns and the way you do things, there are some variations, but it is fast and it is powerful. And again, it is in the same user interface. Document management, we talked about that, being able to drag and drop documents in, things of that nature. Again, document management, at least twice the functionality, if not three times the functionality that you can do with the attached functionality in GP. You'll see this document universal search when you're looking for things, and it might be just a document. That searching capability is not just built into like one aspect of Acumatica, it's built into the entire platform. Think of it as almost like Google looking at your system data. Stacey's going to show that to you. The workflow engines and the business events automation in Acumatica, head and shoulders above what we have available in GP. You're going to also see dashboards, pivot tables. Yes, GP has SQL reporting services, but it's a complicated tool, and to do anything in it, it is not easy. You have to almost be a database access person, in order to understand it and work with it. The tool sets in Acumatica are much more simpler and easier to use. And we even can do pivot tables right in the application without jumping out to to a tool like Excel. You know what I mean? So long and short is, let's see Acumatica in action when I turn it over to Stacey. In the meantime, I just want to talk a little bit about this Lunch and Learn series where we've been authorized by Acumatica, because this is the first time we're even going to our Acumatica base of customers to kind of go, compare, GP to Acumatica. They're offering us a 33% discount for 3 years. And there's a smaller discount on the small business edition, which comes in a 5 or a 10 user. That's already been discounted, so the 33 doesn't apply for that. But the important part is that over the next 2 months, should you, like, what you see with this series, and you want to take advantage of it, we have till the end of November where we can pass on some additional discounts to you. Normally, Acumatica, and I can tell you because we've been selling it for 4 years, the discounts are about 10% normally, on quarter to quarter. So the 33 is a special offer for us to, in effect, try to get some of our GP customers, if they want to move to the cloud, to take advantage of that discount, for 3 full years. We also have developed a conversion tool that we can use to convert your data. Now, it's not 100% conversion. We don't convert all your historical data, but being able to transfer you from a GP platform to an Acumatica platform can be done much easier with this tool. And this tool is something that we're expanding, and every month we're making it better. And the more people that we use it on, the more extensive the tool is going to get. I do want to just take a personal note to say that Cal, after running on GP for 23 years, 4 years ago, when we picked up Acumatica, we said, listen, we know enough about GP than we ever will, and it wasn't changing that much anyways at that point. So we made the switch to Acumatica 4 years ago. So all the statements that you're getting, all the communications, all the reminders, all your invoices, if you look at the bottom of them, they'll say powered by Acumatica. We utilize we utilized GP for 20-something years. Now we're utilizing Acumatica. I can honestly say, as a business owner, talking to to other folks like you, that are using GP like we were, it was the best thing we ever did. And the things that we've been able to do with this platform, and the efficiencies and the visibility, have even blown myself away. I mean, I knew when we were going to switch to Acumatica, we would see benefits, but the benefits have been far beyond what I thought they were going to be, making the switch. I just thought, all right, yeah, we're just going to use a different product. But Acumatica has really done so many things for our business, especially when we were going through COVID and people working remotely. That's just one of the advantages, but just the visibility and the ability to access our data in the ways that Stacey is going to be showing you within the Acumatica platform, just are far superior to GP. I just have to keep saying that flat out, because that's really what we've seen, and how it has changed at least my view and my ability to work with our own business data. Let's go into GP, and we will turn it over to Stacey.
Okay, so we're going to start here with our demonstration today, just kind of going through, starting to kind of compare the differences of how you access the application. So in the Acumatica world, there is no software install required whatsoever. Acumatica is available through a web browser. I'm using Chrome today. Acumatica does recommend either a Chrome or an Edge browser. Those are the preferred browsers for the application. So as long as you have that browser and you have the URL with some login credentials, you can access Acumatica from anywhere. In the GP world, right, in order for you to actually open up the application, you have to have that software installed on your computer. I'm sure many of you know what that process is like, right? You get a new user, you get them a new computer, you got to call Cal, or maybe your IT team is trained to do this for you, and they got to go through the whole software installation. And it's a little bit of a process. Here in the Acumatica world, that is completely eliminated. Again, as long as you have access to a browser and provided the URL and credentials, you could access the application immediately. So here I already have my URL loaded for our environment today. I'm going to go in and I'm just going to pop in my credentials to log in here to the platform.
Stacey, I did want to share one thing is that, if you're using an application server, you still have to store the, or, load that GP application somewhere. So if you're not doing it on a local PC, you might be doing it on a terminal server, what they call an application server. And then in some cases, if you have more than, let's say, 10 or 12 users, you might have 3, 4, 5 different application servers, but you have to have a version of Great Plains, the actual core code on that application server, and then everybody is sharing that, that code. So, you either have to load it locally or you have to load it on a terminal server, application server, but you have to load that somewhere where, again, Acumatica, you're interacting with, in effect, a website, just for clarifications.
Thanks, George. Okay, so you can see how quickly Acumatica loaded here. This is running on one of our Cal servers. It's not running in the Acumatica cloud because this is one of our demo environments. I can tell you in the Acumatica cloud, it runs even faster than what you just saw today. So there's no more sitting there waiting for like GP to log in, depending on any third parties that you may have installed in your environment, right? GP can take a little bit of time to load. Acumatica is just about, it's almost instant. So when you log into Acumatica, every user can have their own home page that is defined. For the user that I'm logged into today, you can see that my home page is actually set to the AP clerk dashboard. So I'm going to be acting today in the role of an AP clerk as we go through this demonstration. And so it was only appropriate for me to set my dashboard to this AP clerk view. Now we're going to start today by just kind of going through some of the general navigation here in the platform and kind of talking about this home page that I landed on when I logged in. So over here in the right-hand side, we have our workspaces, okay? And I'm going to demonstrate to you right now the responsive design that George was talking about, where doesn't matter what platform I'm on, okay? When I shrink my view, you can see how the dashboard or the information that's being displayed is just kind of dynamically adjusting, okay? So that's the responsive design where Acumatica can adapt to different platforms very easily out there. So over here in our workspace, this is basically the different modules that the user has access to within the platform. Acumatica is role-based, very similar to GP, where you can have one or more security roles applied to a user. And based on that security, that's going to restrict the user's access here in Acumatica. So what you're seeing in your workspace, again, is going to be security specific. Now, when I click on these workspaces, it's going to bring me to the menus, and under the different menus, I'm going to have access to the screens or the forms, again, that my security profile is granting me access to. Okay? So this is a little bit similar to GP. We're down kind of in the bottom. You're going to see your modules, and you can click into it. And from there, in GP, you can see how you have access to the screens that your security allows. Coming across the top, okay, if I hit this little Acumatica icon, which we in a real environment, we typically replace that with your company logo. That will immediately bring me to whatever my home page is set to. So quick, easy access right to that dashboard that I'm always working on. Going across the top here, we have our search. This is our universal search. Here's where you're going to start to see the power of how data is easily accessible inside of Acumatica. This universal search works kind of like a Google search. And as we go through this, you're going to see it's actually searching different areas of the system. So while you can access screens through your workspaces, right, by drilling into the forms, I can actually find those screens very, very easily through my universal search. If I just type in the word bills, and you can see how it's filtering out the screens, again, that I have access to based on what I am typing in my universal search. So I don't have to go clicking, multiple levels to try and find that. I'm just up here, and I know where I need to go, type that screen name, and it's filtering and finding that screen for me where I can just select and it opens it up. Okay. So that's one thing that the universal search can do for you. I'm just going to type my bills again. You'll notice here in my universal search, it's actually broken down into 4 categories. First being my menu items, which is searching the menus for the different screens that I have access to. Okay. The next tab is it's actually searching through Acumatica transactions and profiles. So profiles are like your vendor files, your customer files, your inventory files. It's actually searching through the transactions and profiles for anything that contains that word bill. And then it's popping up a list that I can quickly drill into. So this is fantastic if you get a vendor that calls and they're inquiring, let's say, on their bill number 3010. Let me just refresh that. Okay. You can see that bill number comes up very quickly, or I can just click on it and it opens up that transaction for me, eliminating the need to have to, again, go to the workspace, open the form, and then do a search in the form to find that bill number. Okay. So that's an example of the power of finding a transaction or a profile through that universal search. Okay. Now I'm going to go back to my search on the word bill and put in the word and I'm going to pop over here to my Help Topics tab. So this is online help, where it's searching all of the Acumatica wikis for whatever I put here into my search criteria. And it's coming up with a list of suggested help articles that, again, I can drill into that pertain to my search. You can see there's multiple pages. So a really quick, easy way to find some online help for whatever topic you're looking to explore. Now, the last tab is your files. So if you are storing file attachments in Acumatica, these file attachments can be attached to any sort of profile or transactional record. If you know the name of that file attachment, again, from your search, you can type the full name, a portion of the name, and it's going to display that file here for you to be able to quickly go ahead and grab and open. So that's the 4th component available in this universal search. So much power here to find all sorts of data throughout the entire system. Okay. All right, so we're going to move on here to this little button. Kind of almost looks somewhat like a clock. I'm going to go ahead and click that. This is a list of my recently viewed records. So I don't know how many times you were working on something and you accidentally closed out the screen. You're like, oh my goodness, what was that? What was the record number? How do I get back to that? Through this recently reviewed records, you could quickly get immediately back to the last record that you were working on, right? As well as a list of others. Okay, so that's pretty cool. And I can just click into this and it'll bring me directly to the record that I was working on. These recently viewed records are also categorized here, okay, by the different modules or types of transactions. And the other thing that I can do with these recent reviewed records is I can flag them as a favorite. So over here, I actually have this business event that we're going to review in a little bit set up as a favorite record. So it doesn't matter when I come into here, it's going to be right here on my list for me to select, and it will bring me to that exact screen, and it will have the record already set within the screen. Okay. So we just talked a little bit about favorites here, right, under our recently reviewed. Okay. Acumatica allows you to build out a favorite workspace within the platform itself. So every user can go ahead and basically tag different screens that they commonly use to build out their favorite workspace here. So you can see for our demonstration today, I built out some favorites that I'm going to be navigating to throughout this demo so that they're accessible very easily for me. Now to flag something as a favorite, very, very simple. You go to the workspace, you can just find the form. You'll notice there's a little kind of gray star when I hover over that form name. All I need to do is click the star, it turns to yellow. That yellow is an indicator that it's a favorite. So now if I go up to my receivables and I go to favorites, I should see under the receivables menu that invoice and memo form that I just flagged as a favorite. Now I can unfavorite them just by clicking on the star, and that will remove the favorites. I can do that directly from the workspace as well. So again, building out your favorites is user specific, so it allows your users to kind of personalize the environment that they're working in. Moving across the top of the toolbar here in Acumatica, we do have our drop down. If we are a multi-company or multi-branch environment, we have the ability to quickly toggle back and forth either between a company or a branch within the company. Okay? There is no really, logging in, logging out, doesn't take any time, right, to do that. Again, it's almost instant here, changing that company or branch that we want to work with. We have our date and time that this is our system date and time. A user can change that for some reason. They want to always transact, let's say on the first of the month or the end of the month. They could set that date so that any new transaction they're creating will have that timestamp. This also can be controlled through security. Regardless of where you are inside of Acumatica, on every screen, you're going to see this little question mark on the form itself. This will open up online help that's specific to the screen that you're on. So if I hit that little question mark here, okay, this is bringing me to the online help here for this form called Business Events. Within the online help, it's broken down to some different categories. Some will kind of give you, help you understand the procedures or concepts. The form reference will describe all the field names and what they're intended to be used for. So again, at your fingertips, another way to access online help without really even having to search based on the form that you're currently in. Okay. Last thing I want to point out here is the user you're logged into. This is where you would go to sign out. And this is where a user can also access their profile. So things that a user can control under their profile is their email account, passwords, some security for some password recovery if we want to implement that. If you're going to be using Acumatica to email, one of the areas that a user will typically come into here is this email settings. Well, they'll go and they'll lay out what they want their email signature to look like when Acumatica is emailing for that user here out of the system. Okay. All right, so that's kind of a quick overview here of the navigation and what's available here on your home page. Now, I did want to talk a little bit more about companies and branches, because this is an area that's actually a bit different than GP. Right? In GP, typically, if you have a separate company or a separate branch, we're actually having to deploy a separate GP database. What does that mean, right? That means that you have to maintain a separate chart of accounts for each of those companies or branches, separate vendor records, separate customer records. If you deal with the same customers, same vendors, use same chart of accounts, you're having to replicate that, right, across all those GP companies. Here inside of Acumatica, all of your companies and or branches all live within the same login. Now, we can control which company or branch a user has access to through security. So it's not like they log in and they can see everything. There's security that can control and restrict that type of access. But by having all your companies and all your branches in the same tenant that Acumatica calls or refers to, what it does is it allows you to share your same chart of accounts, share vendors, and share customers. Okay? It also makes it easy where users aren't having to, again, kind of bounce in and out of GP, right? Again, you're just up here toggling, and it's kind of just switching your view. Now, can you accomplish this through something similar through GP, where you are sharing those master file records and you're not having to kind of log in and out? Yes, but it does require a third-party add-on called multi-entity management. There are no third-party add-ons required here within Acumatica. The multi-company, multi-branch functionality here is part of the core platform. Okay. Now, with having that multi-company environment, I'm actually going to type in the word company in my universal search and open up that screen for you. Here's where you can control whether or not you want to have branches and whether or not you want to have intercompany balancing kick in automatically when you're working in that multi-company, multi-branch environment. Other things you can control is this a 1099 reporting entity? So having all your companies combined together, again, sharing the same vendors, Acumatic can split out your 1099 reporting at either a company level or even down to a branch level. If those branches are separate legal entities and maybe not like your typical divisions, at a branch level, we can break out that vendor activity into separate 1099 reporting. Okay, so just a little bit on the companies and vendors to give you an overview of that. Okay, next thing we're going to jump into that is kind of system-wide. What I'm going to show you here is going to be in the AP module. However, the functionality that I'm going to demonstrate is going to be the same regardless of where you are in the system, what module you're in. It's not specific to that. So I'm going to kind of show you the equivalent of a smart list here inside of Acumatica. I'm going to go to my favorites menu here where I tagged my bills and adjustment screen, and I'm going to open this up. Okay, so what we're looking at here is kind of equivalent to inside a GP. If you're familiar with the accounts payable module with Smart List, there's that payables transaction Smart List. Okay, this is the equivalent of that inside of Acumatica here. Now, the first thing you're probably noticing right off the bat is some of this different coloring that you're seeing here. Now, Acumatica allows us to apply some conditional formatting to any of the inquiries in the system so that we can draw attention to the user's eyes when certain data elements meet a rule that we define. So what we're looking at here is I applied a rule on this inquiry that said for any bill that has a status of on hold, show it to me in yellow, because that means I still need to go back to that AP bill and I need to finish that up, right? It's on hold. You'll notice here we've got some green coloring. The green coloring is for any AP bill that's marked closed. I'm saying, that's good, you know, no problem, that's closed. Now we've got our orange coloring, which is just on a specific cell. Okay, so the yellow and the green, this is row conditioning, where I'm marking the whole row a certain color if it meets a certain condition. The orange is a field condition, where I applied a rule that says for any bill that has an open balance greater than $5,000, show that to me in orange. Draw my eye to that, bring attention to that, so I can see those bills again that have that balance of $5,000 or greater. So this is, again, some conditional formatting that we can apply colors to draw your eye to, again, certain data where you want your users to perhaps pay attention to. As far as being able to filter our data in these inquiries, in GP, right, you've got to come up to your your toolbar, and you got to click a search window, and you have to add your fields, and I think you're limited to 4 searches unless you're using like a smart list builder. Here inside of Acumatica, on any one of these headers, you can just click the header and I can apply a filter very quickly. So I might want to say, hey, show me all of my bills that are on hold, right? I can just come in here, click the on hold, and it automatically goes out and dynamically filters that data for me. So again, on any of these headers, I just click on them and I can apply the filter. I can apply a multi-filter, okay? So again, an example of that is I might want to see everything that's on hold. I'm sorry, that's open. And that has a balance of greater than that 5,000. So I'm going to go over to my balance. Notice how my filter options change automatically depending on the data type. So if this Acumatica is smart enough to know that this is a numeric field, so it's changing these filters to be like an equal to or greater than, is between, things like that. Or if it's a text field, right, it has some different filters that the system automatically knows to apply. So I'm going to just say is greater than $5,000 here. Okay, so here's how it's able to quickly apply that multi-filter selection. Now, as I filter up here in my toolbar, those filters are getting added. So if I wanted to change the value, I can quickly click the 5,000 bounds. Maybe I want to see now what's, greater than 1,000. Okay. If I want to clear the filter, I kind of demonstrated here how I can say clear filter, but I also can just come up here and I can drag that and immediately get rid of it. You can see how user-friendly and how interactive this inquiry grid is here in this Bills and Adjustment screen, again, as well as any inquiry that you're going to work within inside of Acumatica. Okay. One other quick filtering, and then I'm just going to say select all. There are some hotkeys in Acumatica. If I click on a particular cell, so in this case, I'm going to click on the on hold cell right here. Okay. If I hit Shift F, that's going to automatically apply that on hold filter. So there's some nice hotkeys again to make this really quick and easy to kind of accomplish certain functions here within the system. I'm going to go ahead and clear that. Within the grid, some other things that I can do is I can drag and drop my columns. Okay. Whatever I'm doing here in the grid is specific just to my user profile. So if I change the look and feel of my grid, I am not affecting anybody else's view. Okay. So that's how we can drag and drop. Okay. The other thing you can do, you have a form search. We talked about the universal search that searches the whole system, right, for whatever criteria you specify in here. This is a form search where we can define what fields we actually want to search through when we type in here. So if I type in the word Williams, okay, it's going through and it's finding all the transactions here that contain that name Williams, but only for this one form that I'm on. Again, it's not searching the entire system. So some more powerful searching capabilities here. Down on the bottom here, you can see I've got some summing. So it's showing me the value, right, of all the transactions here. It's counting the number of vendors that I'm displaying in this list. And then over here, it's counting the number of bills being displayed. Now, when I apply filters, and I'm going to do a filter on my on hold again, you'll notice that whatever aggregation I'm applying, whether it be counting or summing, okay, that's dynamically refreshing based on the transactions that are being displayed. Okay. Now, can you do this in Acumatic? In GP? Yes, but you need something like a Smart List Builder, a third-party add-on to accomplish this. So being able to add that aggregation, that summing, that counting, right, that eliminates the need to have to take your data out to Excel, probably, not as often as you might need to, because you've got that capability here right within the platform. Let me go ahead and turn on all my statuses again. Okay, so more personalization that we can do here. Let's say I don't work with project accounting. In my grid here, you can see I have this project column. I can remove this very easily from my view by coming over here to the left-hand corner and clicking on like that little sheet-looking paper icon. And in this window that opens up called the column configurator, it's broken down into two sections. The left sections are columns that are available that I can add into the grid. Okay. The right-hand column are all of the visible columns currently in my grid that I can either move to the available, so I'm taking them out of my view. And then I also, while I'm in here, I can reorder if I want to. All right. So if I don't want this project view, I can shift that over to the available, hit OK, right? And now that column's gone. I don't have to do that one column at a time. I can do a multi-selection if I want to either add or remove multiple columns all at the same time. Okay, so that's a little bit on the column configurator. Again, another way for a user to be able to personalize their view here. I want to go through what's called saved filters. This is going to kind of be equivalent to like a smart list favorite. So when I come into my inquiry, I'm seeing here all the transactions. There's no filters being applied. We talked about how you can come up to a column and you can apply a filter. Okay? Those column filters only stick as long as you stay in the screen. Once you leave the screen, right, you lose those column filters and it goes back to its default view. So if there are filters or views that you want to save so you can reuse those over and over again, Acumatica has what's called saved filters. This little button that looks like a filter, a funnel, if I go ahead and I select that, here's where I can start applying some filtering criteria. So let's say I want to create a filter for all of my open AP bills. I'm going to find my field name called status, and I'm going to say where it's equal to open. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save that, and I'm just going to call that open documents. And I'm going to apply that. So you'll notice that these filters that we create and we save, they actually appear as a tab now here in my inquiry. So here's still all my records, right? But now I have this saved filter that's always going to be available to me, even if I go out and I come back in. Now these saved filters, I can make visible just to myself, the way I created that one. Or if I have security rights, I can share this filter across other users within the organization. Okay. The other thing that I can do is I can make this new filter that I created the default. So what does that mean? That means anytime now I come into this bills and adjustment screen, which I'll come back into, it will automatically go to that filter that I set as my default, rather than defaulting to all the records. Okay. In a generic inquiry, we have a tool that we can utilize called side panels, where it's taking some piece of data in a highlighted record or the row that I'm on, and it's actually passing it into another form. Now this functionality here is called a side panel. You'll notice over here on the right-hand side, I have a couple of icons. These are side panels that I created that's using some data here within the highlighted record to actually pop open on the side another screen or another form. Okay, so the first one I want to demonstrate to you is vendors. So if I click this little button here, oops, let me try that again. Okay, when I click that button and I select a record, okay, what it's doing is it's passing in the vendor ID from this transaction, and it's opening up the vendor profile for me. So if I go ahead and I click ADP, right, it's showing me the vendor. The reason why I got an error when I first clicked is because this is actually an employee, not a vendor, so it couldn't find that record here in the vendor profile. So here dynamically, again, I can click any of these AP transactions. I don't have to open it up and try and drill into the vendor record. Just through this side panel functionality, I am now looking at the vendor record. If my security allows me to edit, right, I can interact with this vendor profile screen just as if I navigated to it. I can make any kind of changes here that I might need to. Now I can resize this side panel, right? So if I want to make that bigger, I can certainly do that. So flexibility there. Again, this is per user. And then if I want to snap it back, I just hit the arrow and I'm kind of full screen here. The other one that I created a side panel for was vendor details. So if I click on this, again, it's taken this vendor ID, it's passing it into my vendor details form, and it's showing me all the open transactions, or if I say show all documents, it's going to show me all the transactions, the full vendor history, again, without having to leave this screen. So sometimes, like what's very common, you could, on a vendor profile, right, when you're on their profile, you might want to see all their history. We could create a dashboard that's specific to that vendor. So the example I showed you today here was from a transactional screen, but you can do this from anywhere within the system where you are passing data into other screens, so they're just dynamically opening when you're hitting that little icon and you're not having to navigate out. Okay, so that's some side panel functionality. Again, we don't have anything like that really inside of GP today. Here in Acumatica, we've got the export to Excel, so I can go ahead, I can click that button. Now, when this exports out, this Excel file kind of almost acts as an Excel live report inside of GP, where it's got a live data connection back to Acumatica. So here it is, opening in Excel. If I have filters applied, which I did in this case, I'm only seeing my open bills here, it's going to export out that filtered view. Okay. If I was to go and let's say add another open bill to Acumatica, and I wanted to go and I was to refresh this, because this has that live connection back to Acumatica, I would dynamically just see that new record here get added to this Excel file that I've downloaded. All right, last thing I want to show you here on the generic inquiry is some pivoting functionality. So I'm sure many of you have taken data dumps from a smart list and have then in Excel created a pivot table. Here inside of Acumatica, I'm going to go to my all records and work off of this one. Here in Acumatica, right, I have the ability to create a pivot table right here within the platform. So if I come over to this little dot, dot, dot button, I can say save as pivot, and I can just call this maybe summary by vendor. Again, I can share this out, or I can just make this visible to myself. From within here, I'm going to go pull my vendor name into my rows. I want to know what my document, where's my total? My total amount is going to be my value. So it's going to go ahead and sum that. And then I want to break this out by the different document statuses. So I'll make that my columns here. All right. Now, again, based on the type of field it is, the system knows how it would aggregate that data, right? This is a text field, so from an aggregation, the default it wants to count. This is a numerical field, right? So it knows by default, we typically want to sum those. I can override those if I like. Another thing I'm going to do really quick before I go ahead and show you the pivot, I want to change the field with name on the vendor because I know at 100, it's going to kind of cut off that vendor name a little bit for me. So I'm going to change the field width just on that vendor column. I'm going to hit this little gear up here, and it's going to go, and it's going to go pivot that data for me. So here I'm looking at by vendor, right? All of my AP bills by the different statuses, and then I get a total here. Get some grand totals down on the bottom. Now again, this pivot, this is here for me to view. Anytime I come into this bills and adjustment screen, this pivot is going to be here. One more thing that's really cool about the pivot is if I'm here and I want to see, oh, what do I have open here for the American door? I can just click on that, and it's going to show me the transactions rolling up that's making that open value just for that vendor. Okay, pretty cool stuff. All right, that's kind of concludes the generic inquiry. Again, the equivalent to a smart list inside of GP. So what I want to talk about next, and I'm going to go back to my all records, is activities inside of Acumatica. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up one of these AP bills here that I have. So on every transaction, on any kind of profile screen inside of Acumatica, you have activities. Now, activities are broken down into 4 categories. We typically see people using 3 of them. The first one is notes. you can create a log of notes, communication, things that you want to document, right, about this transaction or about a particular vendor or customer. You also can create a to-do for yourself, which Acumatica refers to as a task that's associated with a particular transaction or a particular profile. And the other activity that you can actually generate on most of these transaction profile screens is emails. You can email directly from that particular screen. So up here, you can see I already have an activity recorded. This is a note, okay, where I just noted that I discussed the price. There was a price increase on this bill, and I already discussed this. So I put a note on here just indicating that I had a discussion with Mary in purchasing, confirming this price increase, and basically saying she okayed that. So now anytime I go to this transaction, if anyone's questioning why there is the price is the price, I've got that note that I can refer back to that's tied to that activity. Again, from activities, I can create that task or a to-do. If I want to create like a reminder for myself, I can create a task. If I want to email directly from here, I can create an email. Maybe I'm communicating with the vendor back and forth about this. That could get logs here. All right. Now, if I drill into the vendor record, I will have visibility to all these different types of activities that are taking place across any transaction related to that vendor here inside my activities tab. Okay. So while I recorded it at a transactional level, the vendor profile is aggregating all that communication to those different forms of activities, and they're showing them here in one place. If I drill into it, I can see the related entity, what this is related to, and I can quickly get back to that AP bill if I need to. Okay, so that's just a little flavor on activities. When we get into some of the transactional processing in the upcoming sessions, we are going to focus a little bit more on that. I'm going to go ahead and close that out, and I'm going to go hit my Acumatica icon because I want to get to my dashboard. Just talk a little bit about dashboards here. All right. So Acumatica comes with, and let me actually just hit the dashboard screen. You can see here Acumatica comes with quite a few out-of-the-box dashboards. So as a user or as a client of Acumatica, you don't have to necessarily start from the ground up and build your dashboards. You can utilize the ones that Acumatica has, and you can, tweak what's there, take things off, add things, and so on. Again, I'm kind of acting as an AP clerk today, so we're going to quickly review some of the information we're seeing here on our AP clerk dashboard. Okay. So first thing you'll notice is there's really different types of widgets on dashboards, right? We have these KPIs, we've got different types of charts. I can actually create a table where maybe I'm seeing the last 10 communications that I've had with the customer. Or maybe I'm seeing in a list, all of their open AP greater than $300,000, right, in a table view. So we could also have a table view. Now, what's really cool about all these dashboard widgets is, regardless of the type of widget that it is, you can drill into each of these. Okay, so here, this one is telling me that I've got a document on hold. If you remember back to that bills and inquiry screen, and here's where I'm going to show you a little new functionality. I can keep my dashboard open, and I can navigate and open up another screen by either holding down my shift key and clicking on the form, or I can right mouse click and I can say I want to open a new tab or a new window. Okay, so here's where I have the ability, right, to have multiple really screens open. I can disconnect them. So if I got two monitors and I need to work with both these forms at the same time, I can have one on one screen, one on the other. I can bring them back together if I want to when I'm done. Okay, but what I wanted to kind of show you here is this on hold document. Okay, this is the document that we're actually seeing here on our dashboard. Now, I don't have to navigate to bills and adjustments to go see that document. I can simply just click the widget, and it's going to bring me to a filtered list of transactions that are on hold. so that right from here, if I want to, I can drill into this and I can complete what I need to on this, take it off a hold, save that, and when my dashboard refreshes, I go back to that, this 1 should now say 0. I can force a refresh. So for each widget, we can set this to refresh at whatever intervals you would like, so it happens automatically. Or if I hit this little update button, I can push a manual refresh. But you can now see that that document is no longer in that on hold widget because we changed the status to balance. Okay, so here we've got some AP aging charts. Again, if I click into that, that brings me to an inquiry that's showing me the breakdown of that aging. So every dashboard widget, okay, is designed through that generic inquiry that we started on, that bills and adjustment. It's all the data is driven through a specific generic inquiry that we can then drill into to see what's making up the data in that dashboard. Okay. We could have a session just on dashboards if we wanted to. Again, I just want to give you a little flavor of that. So we have about 5 minutes left. So I'm going to move on to business events. Okay. Business events is a tool, okay, where we are able to automate certain business processes, almost any business process that you would want to configure, okay, and it doesn't require any sort of programming or customizations or anything like that, okay. I'm going to show you a quick business event that I created where an email is going to get sent out to a user anytime a new vendor record gets added, right? So you may want to put some controls in place, but not super tight controls where you want to have approvals on vendors, but you want to be notified, right, when a new vendor gets added to the system. So I created a business event that detects whenever a new vendor is added. So what I'm going to go do really quickly is I'm going to go over to payables and I'm going to go to vendors and I'm just going to add a vendor really quick. So here I'm going to give my vendor ID a name. Acumatica allows us to auto number all of your IDs. So again, unlike GP where you have to actually define your vendor IDs, your customer IDs, things like that, we can turn on some auto numbering schemes to take care of that for you. In this environment, the auto numbering is turned off. So I'm just going to call this BE for business event. I'm going to assign a vendor class. And I'm just going to give this name business event and save this. That's all I need to save this record. Now, upon save, okay, this is what is triggering this business event that I have set up. So I'm going to navigate over to that business event really quick here. And I called it new vendor. Okay. So what it's doing is it's reading this generic inquiry screen. This is the form number. And there's a rule set up, a trigger that says anytime a new record is inserted into this vendor inquiry, okay, go ahead and send out an email notification. Now these email notifications are completely customizable. So what does that mean? That means that you can define exactly what you want sent out in the body of that email. Acumatica does have the ability to also insert some data fields, right, in Acumatica. So I could have said like who the new vendor actually was. I kept this really simple for this example. It was very generic, but this is what the email would say in this example here. So I'm going to go back to my business event. I'm going to go to view history, where you're going to see that that trigger was initiated here, right, just a few minutes ago. Our server is in a different time zone, which is why you're seeing that 10:17 when it was really 1:17. But this is the event that was just triggered, okay? And what did it do? It sent out this email notification. So if I was to go look at my emails here that are pending processing, I didn't actually send it out. It's in the queue waiting to be processed. Here's this email that's all queued up, waiting to go out to notify myself that there was a new vendor added to the system. So again, any kind of notifications that you want going out to, it could be users within your system, it could be vendors, customers, anyone, right? we can define a business event that includes whatever the rule is, and have that notification go out. Right? Last thing I want to cover, because I do want to leave some time for Q&A, is attributes or user-defined fields, kind of more of a common name for these. So inside a GP, right, you're pretty limited in what kind of additional user-defined fields that you want to be able to add. On your vendors, your customers, even your inventory items, there's a little flexibility where they let you kind of label a couple fields that they kind of have earmarked for these user-defined fields. Here in Acumatica, you can create an unlimited number of user-defined fields in the system. So I'm going to come over here and I'm just going to demonstrate how simple that is to do on, let's say, a vendor card. So I'm going to go into the screen called Attribute. And I'm going to create a field called W9. And I'm going to call it W9 Received. Now, I do have the ability to define what kind of a field I want this to be. It could be a text, it could be a combo box like a drop down, a multi-combo drop down, checkbox, date, or it could be actually a lookup into some additional data here in Acumatica. I'm going to create a checkbox field off of this one, and I'm going to go ahead and save that. Now, what I need to do to make this attribute visible on the vendor screen is I need to go to the vendor class form, and I need to add this attribute. So when they sing about these attributes or user-defined fields here inside of Acumatica is you can have attributes that don't have to be visible to all your customers or all your vendors because you have to place it into a vendor class or a customer class or an item class. You can have different user-defined fields that are specific to your different classifications of vendors, customers, items, and so on. So I'm going to come to my vendor class here, and I'll go to my product class, and I'll go to the attribute column, and here's where I'm going to go add that attribute that I just created called W9. Now, I also have the ability to make this required, meaning that when someone sets up a new vendor, if they don't fulfill this data requirement here, right, and you know, mark and put some sort of data in it, then they would not be able to save that. Not really applicable under this example, but just wanted to point that out. So I'm going to go ahead and save that, and I'm going to go to payables, and I'm going to go over to my vendors and vendor class, right? Here's a product vendor, so I'm going to open that up. And under the attribute field tab now, we should see that W9 received, which here's my value where I'm going to say yes. And then of course we could run reporting. We could have business events firing where if a vendor is set up and you don't check that box, someone receives some notification that says, hey, we don't have a W9 for this employee. Or maybe we create a dashboard digit, right? A widget on the AP clerk's dashboard where we show all the vendors where W9 received is set to false, to remind them that here's the list of vendors that you need to go out, you need to collect those W9s for. Okay, so that's just a little flavor of attributes here on a profile screen. You can do the same thing on transaction screen. So maybe on an AP bill, there's certain data that you want to be able to collect. Again, maybe it's only on certain types of AP bills or transactions. We could use attributes to create those user-defined fields on transactions, just in a similar, just like we kind of saw here on the vendor profile screen. So again, today, what we were trying to accomplish is to give you a flavor of a lot of the out-of-the-box tools and things that are available to you system-wide, not specific to a certain module. So again, to recap, the searching capability here through our universal search, how we can utilize our workspaces to access screens, generic inquiries, again, equivalent to a smart list. We wanted to show you the power of that. And here I'm in receivables, I go to invoices and memos. So what I showed you on that bills and adjustment screen is the same exact functionality that you're going to see here on an invoice and memo inquiry. So again, global, system-wide. Your ability to add activities in the form of a task a note, an email, on transactions or on profiles across the screen. Lots of power there. Dashboards, and we can create dashboards that cross any module within the system. Business events, right? Different ways where we can send out notification to alert users of things that are happening in the system that we want to draw their attention to. And then we talked about those attributes or user-defined fields that we can create in an unlimited form, and we can attach those to your different profiles or transactions here inside of Acumatica. So that was everything that I wanted to cover. Did go a few minutes over. George, I'm going to turn it over to you. I think we do want to have some time for Q&A. So I'll let you take it from here. Thank you, everybody.
Stacey, thank you so much. I mean, just I think when you go through what Stacey just showed, I mean, the flexibility of menus, smart lists versus generic inquiries, you know, the columns, the drag and drop, the pivots, conditional formatting, you know, the GP, you know, there's no universal search. Acumatica being able to look at document levels, menu levels, the crazy, you know, power that you have, you know, SQL reporting services and GP. You know, I mean, Acumatica, you have true dashboards versus, you know, SRS is really more of a report writer, very difficult to use. That activity tracking that Stacey mentioned was, you know, just, you know, imagine that you can, you know, do this on vendors, or if you're, you know, utilizing customers, all that activities, being able to assign tasks to, you know, to other employees on the team, those business events, to being able to trigger things that you now probably do manually, and then the ability to create, you know, in GP, you know, you have a couple user-defined fields on the vendor and a couple on a customer, but that's it. You can't do much with them, and they're text fields, and they really aren't powerful in any way. So when you take a look at all of those things just from a user interface standpoint, and the fact that, you know, you can, you know, control, you know, your preferences is not just a home screen like you have in GP, where you can actually have a favorites screen, as well as, you know, remove items on the menu that you know, your short list of menu items versus your detail. So again, great job, Stacey, in showing that. I'm going to open this up for questions, and you know, for myself or, you know, Stacey or any of the Cal team that's on the call here. But again, wanted to say thank you to everybody. You know, maybe some feedback too. Anybody, you know, kind of have some, I don't know, initial thoughts about what they saw, you know, versus, you know, the day-to-day GP environment.
George, we did have a question about multi-currency. So Acumatica does support multi-currency, and I will say it's even richer in functionality than what GP has to offer.
Oh, she doesn't. Okay. How about Jim? You were kind of in the beginning there. Any thoughts? You've been using GP for a lot of years. Any thoughts about what you saw today?
Yeah, well, thank you. Great overview, Stacey. Certainly, you can see the kind of the power of the reporting on, like, when compared to Smart List. But I guess it was just multi-currency was a question I had, how it works, you know, in a multi-currency environment. I guess that'll be on a future demonstration. And then also reporting. I was curious what the reporting looks like.
Well, I mean, a lot of the reporting is built around those generic inquiries. As you can see, they're kind of like reports live on the screen. I mean, you know, with the totals and things like that, the searching capabilities, all of those obviously can be exported out to an Excel. I mean, just like the GP, we have tons, if not thousands, of reports that, you know, come off, you know, specific, you know, with search, you know, kind of parameters and filters, you know, but I can say that I use the reporting every day, you know, financial reporting, you know, just, you know, checking the bank accounts, things of that nature. You know, all those reports, you know, come to the screen very quickly. And, you know, you can literally, you know, skip to the, you know, last page. We'll be showing some of the reports, you know, when we dive into the accounting, you know, more deeper in seminars 2 and 3.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking more of in consolidation environment where, you do have multiple companies and you're rolling them up. We used to be able to do that in FRX, and we do that in BizNet now, but I was just wondering if there's something similar.
There is, and actually, depending really on what your account structure is, in the version that's getting released next week, this new version is actually allowing you to take companies that have different functional currencies and all run them in the same tenant. So right from there, you can do kind of your conversions and your consolidations. Under its current functionality, when you do have companies with different, functional or base currencies, they do have to be stored today in separate tenants. But there is a consolidation function, kind of like a GP through the report writer, where you can take all that data and aggregate it up into one report through some consolidations.
Yeah, and we will dive into the advanced financial reporter tool that is similar to FRX and management reporter in the next session, where we're focusing primarily on the GL. Yep.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions from anyone? See that there was a question on payroll. Acumatica, we ran GP payroll in-house for 20 years, and we switched to Acumatica payroll just in the past year and a half. We converted to an Acumatica. So Cal had always run payroll on the GP payroll module, but we switched to Acumatica. We love the flexibility. We think it's, even though Acumatica's payroll is fairly new, where GP's is, probably 20 years old. Stacey, you implemented it. Any thoughts about payroll real quick?
Yeah, I think we do need to take a discovery on a client-by-client basis. So it is, as George mentioned, it is a newer module. I will say in some areas, it's actually a lot richer in feature set than GP. What it doesn't have is, some of the third-party add-ons that GP has to enhance some areas like, your PTO policies, things like that. So when it comes to payroll, I do think it's very powerful, but we do need to evaluate the client because this is a newer module. It doesn't necessarily have all the features that someone might need. Not that it's not ever going to, because I think it will. We see this improving on every single release. But again, we just need to evaluate on a client-by-client basis. If it meets your needs, I promise you're going to love it. I just did a big payroll conversion for a company using field service in Acumatica, and payroll is their favorite module out of everything they're using, just because it has streamlined their process so much from what they were having to do prior in an external payroll system.
Yeah, no, definitely. Cal, we like to eat our own dog food first before we tell everybody or our employees that it tastes good. And honestly, like I say, we just felt that the GP payroll was becoming stale. They really weren't adding much. And you're right, it did have the benefit of many years of add-on products. And we're talking to the tune of 25 years of add-on products. The Acumatica has been on the market probably now maybe a year and a half. Tax functionality is superior in many ways. The ability to use the navigation, the GIs, all these reporting tools that you saw we were using just on the vendors, AP bills. The fact that we can use all those tools on the payroll module, because again, written in the same platform, far superior.
There was another question asked if you guys could comment about the budgeting capabilities, if it's similar to GP.
Yes, it's similar. I will say while it's not like some of the third-party budgeting add-ons that you can purchase, it does have some additional functionality where you can kind of create some nodes for your budget, and then download like an Excel spreadsheet that has by department, hand it out to the different departments. It breaks that out by the different departmental nodes, so that you can have one budget, right, that will get broken out. You can hand off to different people that are responsible for kind of budgeting for certain pieces. And then you could import that in to kind of bring it all together again. I mean, GP doesn't do that very, very well. You have to have different budget templates actually set up for that. So it does everything that GP does plus some more. And it also just natively just integrates with the financial report writer so that you can take all that budget information and you can bring that into your financial reports.
Yeah, I mean, the the other thing too is that that some of the same budgeting tools that are available on an ISV level, ones like Budget Maestro, or in this case, Dynamics Budget, which is a really popular one. We have actually nonprofit that was using Dynamics Budget, Zubin's product, and that product is we did a conversion of their database, and it looks like they're going to be moving to GP. And Budget Maestro, he just told us that his product is compatible with Acumatica. So is, I'm sorry, Dynamics Budget is compatible with GP. So a lot of the same budgeting tools that work with GP will also work with Acumatica also, along with other ISVs on the accounts payable side. AvidX, is a big AP tool that some of our GP clients use. That's been compatible with Acumatica, for over 4 years. So yes, did I see a question about SalesPad?
Yeah, it looks like Desiree has a couple of questions, a couple great questions here. One is looking to see if inventory can be tied to Shopify. So Acumatica does, their Commerce Edition does have a connector to Shopify. There's other platforms as well, but Shopify is one of those. And then it looks like she's looking to see if there's a SalesPad add-on, I think is what she's asking. And at this time, SalesPad does not integrate with Acumatica, but there are other ways. It looks like you're trying to get data in through some sort of other platform or Repsio. There are other ways where we can integrate data from other external platforms directly into Acumatica. Acumatica is an open API platform. So basically, as long as we can, get that data out of an external system, we could definitely integrate that into Acumatica.
Yeah. On the point of SalesPad, I mean, we are a SalesPad fan. At Cal, we have over 65 SalesPad clients working with GP. And if you looked at the presentation that Stacey was doing today, being able to move those columns around, being able to filter, being able to take those easily out to Excel, the ability to sum and total columns, all of those features are features of SalesPad, and how that's why we have so many SalesPad add-on clients within our GP base, specifically in our distribution side of our house, companies that are selling, to different distributors, things of that nature. All that generic functionality that what Stacey was showing is really functionality that we saw in SalesPad back in the 2008, 2009 timeframe. So that's why it was so popular, because GP out of the box just didn't do it. You could add on, like you say, Smart List Builder and some of the other ones, but again, you had to pay extra money to add it on. All that functionality around those generic inquiries, including pivots and conditional formatting, are all things that really made SalesPad special to the GP world. So the fact that all comes out of the box inside of Acumatica, to me, just speaks volumes to that.
It looks like there's another question from Desiree. Does the software tie into banking where a wire can be generated from Acumatica or manually through the bank as normal?
Yeah, that's typically still done through the bank. Now, if we can get a file output file, like the specification that's needed to upload for wires, we could certainly tap into the same functionality that we would use for your ACH processing, where we're outputting a file and then you're uploading that to the bank. As long as we can get that file spec for your wire transfers, we should be able to modify that output file that we're using for ACHs to meet the wire transfer format, so you could upload that to your bank. But again, say 100% sure, we would want to work with your bank to see what the file specification requirements are.
I can say with Cal, we are using the ACH functionality, and so just like in GP, if you're going to pay a vendor via an ACH, that functionality in Acumatica is equivalent, if not superior, to GP. We do a lot of dunning letter, communication directly from Acumatica that was not possible in GP ourselves. We also added integrated credit card processing, where we can put on, and we don't do this on all our bills, but let's say, for example, if we have somebody who's signing up for a 1 or 2 hour let's say training session. In the past, we used to have to take, a credit card payment and do it all manually. We use a company called APS, American Payment Solutions, for our credit card processing on Acumatica internally now. And we can actually put on certain invoice types, like a pay it now type thing, where they can literally click on the invoice, click on the pay it now, and then the vendor, or in this case, the customer that we might be expecting payment from at this point, can actually put their secured credit card information, pay it via credit card without Cal having to even deal with the, obviously the credit card number or any of that functionality. And literally it just comes in as a paid transaction via credit card against that invoice. Am I speaking to that correctly, Stacey?
Yes, and to just expand a little bit further on, like the ACH processing, the remittances that we send out to our vendors, a user doesn't even need to go initiate that. We're using that business event functionality that's detecting the release of a new ACH payment, and it automatically knows exactly what report to send out and to who to let them know that we've remitted payment. Again, same thing with the collection letters or the dunning letters. We have a schedule that runs that's looking to see if any of the open invoices are meeting certain criteria, and that notification is just going out automatically. Our accounting staff does not need to worry about monitoring, AR accounts just to send out letters, right? We have the whole notification process completely automated, so that communication is going out to our clients.
Yeah, that's
all through business events and schedules inside of Acumatica.
Yeah. And what's interesting is that, again, a big manual task. I mean, we have over 350 customers, 30 states. We had situations in the fact that where we would send out, even, like a manual process, which we used to do, and people would say, oh, I never got a copy of that, that invoice. So what we do is on those 45-day letters and 75-day, email templates that go out, that if whatever invoices are open 75 days, we attach them right to the email. So we've taken away that whole, kind of communication where we'd have to reach out, or they'd have to reach out and say, oh, we don't have a copy of that invoice. Well, we just do it now, but now by default. So yep. Again, our collections, have, processes so streamlined now compared to what it used to be. It's just like a whole different world.
And as we're emailing, all those automatic emails are getting logged under the customer, under the activities tab. So again, if the customer says, I didn't get the email, you can go to the customer profile, find that email, you can tell them exactly who it was sent to, and you can pull up, like George said, the actual invoices that were attached to that email. That's all recorded here under activities for you. There was a question from Desiree. I love your questions, Desiree. Thank you. She's asking here, so with business events, that I could schedule weekly reports to be sent directly to myself to save costs of hiring an extra person. Absolutely. You can do that through business events, or you'll see next week when you're on, we could take like an aging report and we can save a template out of any of the reports here. And with a template that we create, you could see here, you get this schedule. We can set up a schedule so that any of these reports, it's just firing them off on whatever the frequency is that's defined.
Yeah, we use.
But we could certainly do things through business events as well, but sometimes it might even be more simplistic in just setting up a schedule right on the report here itself, not having a need for a business event.
Yeah, we utilized on the internal side, like if we have open support cases by by our consultants, once a week we send them a list of, let's say, any open support cases that they have that are more than so many days old, and we also had a report where we even aged some of them because so or certain situations, like if we're waiting on a customer response where the case is still open but we've asked the customer to do something, we can send reports out to our consultants specifically on that condition alone. So yeah, I mean, any of those business events can be programmed to do that automatically. We had a situation with a prospect just this week where he said he had a whole part of his week is tied up where they've got product that's waiting in house for the customer to either be picked up or for us to be able to ship it to them, and he has to do this all manually. So we could easily create a business event that would say, hey, we're waiting on customers to get back to us as to how to ship their stuff, versus if they don't get back to us, we might have to charge them time because or money because we're storing stuff. I mean, if anybody has any additional feedback, they'd love to send it to us, or questions in an email. We can follow up specifically on those, and if we have those, we can maybe even touch base on those the next lunch and learn when we're talking more about transactions. All right, everybody, have a good rest of the week, and we look forward to seeing you on the next lunch and learn next week if you haven't already signed up.